I don't think that's the case, no. We've had a very constructive relationship with government. We meet with government ministers regularly to discuss issues that are of concern to Chamber members. And the fact is that the Chamber traditionally, before every election, issues a wish list. This wish list is as a result of representations from members and deliberations by the board. And we thought it was important that we reflected in one document all of the things that we are looking for in a manifesto from either party.
As I say, there are 18 main points on the list. If you could choose just one on behalf of your members on which to get a firm commitment from the parties, which would it be?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer, simply because different sectors within the membership will place more weight or less weight on different aspects of our wish list. One particular aspect which I think is of importance across the private sector is our employment agenda for change that we published earlier in the year. You will recall that was a very lengthy document, and we would really like to see some progress on that and some firm manifesto commitments to implement some of those measures. Another issue where we get complaints across the board is the taxi service, which affects various businesses in different ways. So again, we'd like a commitment to once and for all try and resolve issues with that.
I think e-government or the lack of it, you said that the government hasn't really delivered as much on it as it said it would. This is also one of your prime concerns.
That's correct. When we met with government to discuss the change in civil service working hours, we placed particular emphasis then that should happen concurrently with the full implementation of e-government. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And even though we were told that different governments would roll out e-government services imminently after that, it hasn't happened quite to the extent that we wanted. We understand that part of the reason is because some of the e-government services that will be offered are going to be linked to the new ID cards, and we hope that given that we now have those, that we can roll out with the full e-government quite quickly.
Another thing that you draw attention to is the discrepancy between public and private sector wages. You're calling on the parties to commit themselves to capping any increases in public sector pay to the cost of inflation. Isn't it rather unrealistic to expect them to do that ahead of an election when they know it will be deeply unpopular?
Well, I think the civil service has had huge wage increases over recent years. For example, we saw a recent increase of, I think, 11% for customs. And I don't think that is sustainable going ahead. So given that some of the big increases have already happened, what we're looking is that future increases are capped at inflation.
You also want a cap on the minimum wage. You also want that to be capped at the rate of inflation or even lower. Some might say that that's rather heartless.
Well, it's a policy that the Chamber has had in successive budgets. A minimum wage is that. It's a statutory minimum wage. It doesn't stop employers from paying more than the minimum wage. But what we don't want is a statutory minimum wage that is going to be very high and therefore make businesses in Gibraltar unattractive.
Okay, finally, you've sent this now to the media. I presume that you've also given copies to the parties that will be contesting the election. Would you expect to hear from them before the election takes place, or are you just hoping that they'll include your points in their manifestos? Certainly,
we've sent copies of this to the three leaders, to the leader of the Liberal Party, the GSD and the GSLP. And in the cover letter that has gone with our document, we're asking for a meeting to meet with their executives and discuss its documents. So certainly we are hoping for a meeting before the manifestos are published.